A company that has been in Bitcoin since forever, that still promotes cryptocurrency, is, in my opinion, not as bad as a company that was Bitcoin only at one point and then decided to bring on other cryptos later. Owning the first Donald Duck comic book is probably better than owning the best Donald Duck comic book, because best is subjective and first is not. So at the end of the day, Bitcoin is not backed by energy. It's not a database backed by energy. It's money backed by human action. And we need to defend it as such. That's its original purpose. And as soon as it changes trajectory, the whole thing goes to shit. Medium exchange over space, and the other is medium exchange over time, otherwise known as store of value. On top of that, they say unit of account too, but that's sort of obvious. It has to be a unit of account to function. Like, that's the whole point.
Hi Knut, how are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Absolutely. Good to see you again, Robin. I think we last saw each other in Lugano, maybe, or Bulgaria. Where was it? Prague?
We saw each other in both conferences, Lugano and Bulgaria. I think Lugano was after Bulgaria.
Yes. And you never went to Prague. I went to Prague in between, and you went straight to Lugano, if I remember correctly, or stayed a couple of days in Bulgaria.
Prague. You're talking about the huge treasure event.
The Trezor event, yes.
This was crazy. I saw. I also got the invite, but I was like, I need some break in between. I was actually then sick in those 2 days, which was good that I took the break. But
yeah.
I feel like everyone was there. My feed was full of it. Like, how did you see the event?
Yeah, they flew in all the influencers, of which I'm apparently one. I enjoyed myself a lot there. Prague is always great, and the event was fun. Lots of robots and lasers, and the product looks nice. I mean, I still dislike that they associate so hard with cryptos and altcoins and whatnot. In my opinion, it's unnecessary. But then again, the new secure chip and the device looks absolutely amazing. So it's all good.
Yeah, I always like every product and service, or like person even, that promotes self-custody in a way. Even if I maybe dislike some other things of them, and I also don't endorse or use Treasure, but if they do something to make self-custody good for Bitcoin, I think they're on the right track and they're on the right direction.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for shitcoin companies. Like, so in my opinion, and this is kind of topical given my Twitter feed the last few days, and a company that has been in Bitcoin since forever, that still promotes cryptocurrency, is, in my opinion, not as bad as a company that was Bitcoin only at one point and then decided to bring on other cryptos later. Because Bitcoin, up until around 2017, Bitcoin maximalism wasn't really a thing, even though Hal Finney was sort of onto it very early on, claiming that any attempt at trying to duplicate the success of Bitcoin would be a fool's errand. So Hal Finney was already on that, but like before 2017, there was no real distinction between a crypto enthusiast and a Bitcoin maximalist, and the whole Austrian economics, sound money, store of value perspective wasn't really born yet. No, very few people were thinking about it in those terms. That sort of coincided with the block size wars, and that Bitcoin ought to be, we needed to be decentralized to ensure the 21 million, and that was the most important aspect. And the store of value thing, that was sort of born during the block size wars. So I have more, and if you ran a company back then and you accepted shitcoins, and you moved on to make your hardware wallet have a Bitcoin only firmware or something, like both Trezor and Bitbox, for instance, did. I don't know if Ledger ever did. I don't think they did. Cold Card was Bitcoin only from the get-go, but most of these things had both firmwares and just not removing the cryptos, because there's no effort into just having it there somewhere hidden on the website. So if someone wants that, then they can use it. I view that as less harmful than a company that promoted themselves as Bitcoin only, and then they cling on to another crypto and start shilling that, or like actively pushing that they promote shitcoins. This is, by the way, why we tolerate having Bitbox as a sponsor. Bitbox, the people working there are very nice, and they promote the Bitcoin only version first. They still have the support for cryptos, and some people have pointed out that it's kind of hypocritical to have them as a sponsor. I hope that I can change them from the inside, and at some point make them realize that they would be better off if they went Bitcoin only. Still, I appreciate that they want to support our show and so on and so forth. So there's that. I don't know why I'm in defensive mode today. It's probably because of all this reaction to this tweet about Andreas Antonopoulos affiliation with Ethereum that I did the other day. Yeah, if you want to talk about that, we could. Otherwise, we can talk about other things.
I would love that. And just like one small note on Bitbox, I think, so like I've also partnered up with them, in the past and did some things with them in the past. And every single person I met at Bitbox was for me a full blown Bitcoiner. So I've not met the full team obviously, but the 3-4 people that I've met, they're all Bitcoiners. And for me, it's also interesting to meet the people behind the scenes, because then you really like get to know what is the company really about, and what is the kind of philosophy like that drives the product and the service. But I agree, it's a different story. Just being like in crypto in general, especially if you're a company before 2017 born, and then just like seeing over time, oh, we should actually be Bitcoin only, and just then still having that profit line from the cryptos, and you're like, okay, we're Bitcoin only, but like it makes a bunch of money still, and we can use that money to make that Bitcoin free. Other way around is kind of weird.
Yeah, and it would be different if it was an exchange, or if it was a site tracking the prices of different things, or anything like that. I think a hardware wallet, it's just a signing device. They're not actively promoting any of this shit. It's just that if some idiot wants to give them money to store their fucking ETH or whatever it is, they can use that money to advance Bitcoin adoption. And I don't have a problem with that personally. I have a problem with actually legitimizing shitcoins and promoting them. I mean, my entire mission is in this, and has been from the very first article I wrote, to point out what makes Bitcoin different and why it's not comparable to any other crypto. And people are still confused about this, and a lot of the backlash I got from this tweet the other day shows that. So a lot of people think that this is attacking Andreas in particular, and they're somewhat right. So like, here's my history with Andreas Antonopoulos. I am extremely grateful for all the work he did from like 2014 to 2017, when he basically the only guy who did whatever we're doing right now, Robin, like flying around the world and trying to orange pill it. Andreas was the guy, and he was very good at explaining Bitcoin. Absolutely fantastic educator. He was also my teacher in a course I took 2016 on digital currencies, an online course at the University of Nicosia, Cyprus. He was one of 2 teachers. And the thing that always bugged me, even when I was in that course, was this talk about other blockchains as if they had any relevance. I never bought that from the very get-go. If you read my first article, it's called First Mover Advantage. It's from 2017. It's about how owning the first Donald Duck comic book is probably better than owning the best Donald Duck comic book, because best is subjective and first is not. So maybe not an analogy I would do today. But here I'm just pointing out that anyone promoting Ethereum was either not understanding how money emerges on the free market, and that real money is a winner takes all game. B, not understanding decentralization and how a blockchain has to make trade-offs to achieve it. In other words, you know the blockchain trilemma, right? So you have decentralization, security, and scalability, and you need decentralization and security. You have to. The trade-off is you have to give away the scalability for the other two, which is why Bitcoin has to scale in layers. It could not scale on chain. It's 7 transactions per second maximum, or something like that. Also, this ties into the whole debate about pleb slop, and I am firmly of the opinion that dev slop is more dangerous than pleb slop, because so the point is, if you attended a Bitcoin conference in 2019 and you happened to buy Bitcoin Sovereignty Through Mathematics, my first book, and Mastering Ethereum at the same time, which came out in December 2018. So mine came out in, I believe, May of 2019. So within half a year of one another. Those 2 books, if you followed the advice in my book, which was very much acquire as many Bitcoins as you can, hodl them, never sell them, and sooner or later you'll be able to do whatever the fuck you want. And I did give that advice. Andreas, to his defense, he never told anyone to buy anything, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, not anything else. However, by writing Mastering Ethereum after having written Mastering Bitcoin, he sort of brands the two as 2 similar things of equal value, which is super misleading, because Bitcoin is humanity's best attempt at world peace so far, and Ethereum is a shitcoin scam designed to steal your Bitcoins. So they're opposites in that sense. And this is why Andreas is. I usually don't attack people on X. I attack ideas. This is sort of in between. I know I'm attacking the guy, but I was so his fall from grace was so devastating, just because he had been the best educator in this space. And when he wrote this book and thereby put his name on something that was an obvious scam, then he was one of the heroes that had to be slain, that people had the most difficulty slaying, and some people still refuse to slay him. If you had bought Andreas' book, and if you thought Ethereum was the thing, say you bought both books, or one guy bought one book, guy bought the other book. The guy that bought my book and took the advice in that would have 10x'd his money by now, 7 years later. Because Bitcoin was about 1/10 of what it is right now. Anyone who bought Andreas's Mastering Ethereum book and basically took his advice of it's okay to fuck around and find out with this shit would have lost 90% of his money. He would have 10x the other way. So 100x. It was 100x better financial advice to buy my book. And I'm not saying this to pound my chest. I'm honestly trying to figure out here. How come? And a lot of people have pointed out that Andreas is smarter, better looking, and more technically competent than me, which is 100% true. So how come this 80 IQ pleb slop idiot managed to write a book that was 100 times more valuable investing-wise than this tech guru? Think about that. Andreas has at least 119 IQ. And he's an expert in computer networks. But the thing is, he never understood this sound money aspect. Like, to me, the interesting thing was always that resistance to replicability couldn't be replicated. Either this works, either Bitcoin works, or none of this shit works. Because if you can copy it, then that you can copy the copy or copy. And you end up with just the same old fiat system as we're trying to get away from. Andreas, on the other hand, he promoted filing your taxes, KYCing your Bitcoin. He still sells Ethereum merch for fiat on his website. A lot of things point to him never being convinced himself about Bitcoin being this separating money and state big thing that it is. Like, the skin in the game just isn't there. And me, the 80 IQ pleb, either I was lucky or I was onto something that was bigger than just dev slop. And I'm not only talking about me and my book. Like Seyfedin was onto the same thing. A lot of other people were onto the same thing. A lot of people had this had this idea that if Bitcoin works, this can really be everything divided by 21 million. We can go to hyper Bitcoinization was not only a theoretical fun thought experiment. Me and many of my peers actually thought that this was achievable, that this was the resistance movement against the Death Star that is the central banking system of the world, like the galactic empire that is the central banking system, and the Fed that is the Death Star, whatever. So sure, Andreas can teach you way more than I can about how Bitcoin works on a technical level. He cannot teach you why you should Bitcoin and why you should avoid shitcoins. And I believe I can, to a certain extent at least. That's why I'm pleb slopping away still. And that's why I am adamant about spam on Bitcoin being spam and so on, and being very destructive, and calling a spade and a shitcoin, and a shitcoiner a shitcoiner. And I'm not going to stop doing that. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to try to not attack people, but attack ideas. I would love if Andreas came back to the community, apologized for what he did, or at least admitted that some of his decisions were unwise, like shilling Ethereum. It was a very unwise decision. If he came back, he might not need a Patreon anymore. He could get a Geyser fund, and walk the walk. So I would very much welcome that, but it would require him to have a bit of humility as he did so, because he lost a lot of people a lot of money by legitimizing this shit. And yeah, I'm not going to back down on that.
And this thing raises also a really important topic that is in general very important, that I mentioned to you before we started recording, that really annoys me when we have a debate and then someone just says like, oh, this other person but said so. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So you are outsourcing your own critical thinking just to quote someone else, or say like, oh, but he said that, so I'm right because he's an authority and you're not. And so they are basically outsourcing their own brain to someone else, and they're just like looking at the authority, which always really annoys me.
Yes, and sure, I can buy that my expertise is not good enough to actually understand all the nuances of the spam debate, because so the not side had some arguments and the core side had some arguments. Basically, the conflict was about whether something can be done about spam or not, and whether something should be done about spam or not. The thing is, what the fight I'm trying to fight is just to ensure that Bitcoiners understand what spam is, that it's shitcoins, that it's scams, that you can't own them, that everyone who puts arbitrary data on the time chain does so to fool someone else and to lure gullible people off their to lure them to give these spammers your sats. That's all that's the purpose of every single arbitrary data string on Bitcoin ever. There's no other purpose. and it's not use cases. Bitcoin is money. It has to be money. Otherwise, it doesn't work. The Satoshi is sacred because it's the thing that the system pays itself in. It's the unit that pays the system, the people maintaining the system, the miners. That's what we users pay them in. We pay them in sats. The node runners pay miners in sats for finding blocks for us, or for finding block space for us. Now that if they're not finding block space for us, but finding block space for shitcoiners instead, we're going to stop paying them. It's as simple as that. And the nodes are going to run different software that is refusing to pay them for this stuff. So, and also, yes, you can have different ideas about whether this is a fool's errand, whether spam is really unstoppable or stoppable. but at least call a spade and tell it like it is. At least try to educate people that this is shit. And at least stop taking the people who are actively investing in this stuff seriously, because they should not be part of the debate. If you are, if you own stock in a company that puts spam on Bitcoin, if you're on an advisory board, if you do anything with these people, then your opinion doesn't count anymore, because you're not a Bitcoiner, you're a scammer, or you're helping scammers maybe not destroy, but hurt Bitcoin in ways that you should be adamantly against. So yeah, there's a lot of pleb slop here, and maybe I'm upset for this tweet the other day, but I just wanted to defend my position and explain myself, as so many people seem to misunderstand this. Promoting scams hurt people. If you promote a scam, you're hurting other people. You're hurting the most gullible, thereby the most vulnerable people in society, because they're dumb enough to buy the thing. Sure, I'm a free market maximalism. I think people should take responsibility for their own actions. I think if you go to the casino and spend your life savings, that's your problem. It's no one else's problem. But at least I can help by saying, by warning people that this is stupid. Like, that's my job as an educator in this space, warning people about idiotic scams. And it seems like now, once again, I feel this is reminiscent of the 2017 era, in that people are more and more excusing towards these shitheads that just try to steal other people's stuff. Like, it's frustrating to me, because this beautiful, when I saw Bitcoin for the first time, and when I realized this resistance to replicability, like the whole 21 million cap thing being the most interesting thing about it, simply because it makes aggression costlier. If I have something unconfiscatable that's in my head, you can kill me, and the only thing that happens is that everyone else that holding the same token benefits from me dying, somewhat depending on how much value I put into the whole economic pie. I mean, you can't kill all Bitcoiners and make Bitcoin infinitely valuable, but you get my point still. That's the thing that intrigued me in the first place. Here's something that cannot be copied. Holy shit, that means that human beings are now more incentivized to collaborate than to be dicks to one another. And if we all did, we wouldn't have taxes, we wouldn't have inflation. Inflation is the problem that Bitcoin solves. And if we remove inflation, we remove most of the aggression, because inflation is a breach of contract between the central bank and the population. A monetary bill ought to be a receipt for a specific amount of gold. That's what it was in the beginning, and that's what it ought to be today too. There's no fiat currency in the world that's redeemable for gold anymore. So it's all fraud. And this is the problem Bitcoin fixes. It separates money and state. It's beautiful because it stops war. And anything you do to anyone telling you that, oh, that's just romanticism or pleb slop, is missing the whole point. I want Bitcoin to win because it's the tool that removes aggression. But my end goal is removing aggression. I want people to be nicer to one another. Bitcoin is just a tool to get there. And there is no way that you're going to convince me that any shitcoin is ever going to replace that hope. If you go to hope.com, by the way, you can bring it up on screen, right? Oh, yes. This is... I'm having echo here. I'll see if I can remove it. Anyway, so hope.com is Strategy's Bitcoin site. If you go to resources, you can see here the latest book is The Treasury of Michael Saylor, which is Anil's latest book. Much recommended. Then you have classics like The Bitcoin Standard, Lynn Alden's fantastic Broken Money, and then there's an Andreas Antonopoulos book. It's not mastering Ethereum. And it's not even mastering Bitcoin or mastering the Lightning Network. This is a collection of essays that Andreas wrote. It's basically his talks turned into a book. If you scroll to the right there, there's sovereignty through mathematics. So mastering Ethereum is not there. Sovereignty through mathematics is. And if you go on and further to the right, you find some more Austrian literature. So if you go even further, you find economics in Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. You find Hayek, you find Holtzman, and you find Hoppe, and all of these anarcho-capitalists. And there's a reason that those books are there. It's because these ideas is what Bitcoin allows for these ideas to actually come into fruition, for anarcho-capitalism to manifest in the world. People now have a tool to emancipate themselves from the shackles of all the assholes that want to control them and live their own lives on their own terms. That's what I'm here for. That's the revolution I want to promote. That's why I like Bitcoin. And if you want to call that pleb slop, go ahead. This is my end goal, living life on my own terms. And I wish I wish that for as many people as possible, because ultimately that's what defends the state. Amen.
I love that, and I think it always brings back the thing, like the main fundamental that we have to come back. There's so much noise always going on, but we have to remind ourselves why we're here and what we are doing. I have a almost embarrassing question. I hear that word so often in debates and also especially on Twitter, slop, and maybe I'm not native English, but I actually have no clue what slop really means. And now there's like dev slop and pleb slop.
The slop is basically garbage or sludge, like some waste, like you're basically word salad, not worth paying attention to. And this comes from the developer community, and they somewhat rightly think that a lot of us pleb sloppers are just word salad mongers, and we don't actually understand how the system works, which, as I said, on some level that is true. But it's also true that a lot of developers do not understand human incentives, and they do not understand money. They do not understand what money is, or what money ought to be, or the non-aggression principle. Which is like, without any of this, Bitcoin doesn't work. So at the end of the day, Bitcoin is not backed by energy. It's not a database backed by energy. It's money backed by human action. And we need to defend it as such. It's an original purpose. And as soon as it changes trajectory, the whole thing goes to shit. Like at Ethereum, you can't build other shit on. The only point of something that cannot be copied on the internet is money. It's a way for human beings to show gratitude to one another in a very specific way, so that we can, whenever someone gives us a good or a service, we have a perfect tool to represent our appreciation for that by having something that is as finite as our days here on this earth. So the finiteness of a human lifetime is perfectly represented by the finiteness of the 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. That's why this thing is beautiful. That's what we're here for. Saying that it's censorship resistant is the most important thing, and that means that you can use it for anything, is missing the point. It's censorship resistant money. It's money that cannot be confiscated from you and that you can send to anyone without permission. It's not for data. It's not for anything but this. And yeah, there is other shit on it, and people are using it for other use cases. This is an exploit. It's a bug. It's not what it was intended for. And either we fight it or we don't. Some devs say it's pointless to fight against it. Others say that we can fight against it. It's up to you and me to do our research on whether one side is right or not. But the core of the mission, ending inflation, ending central banking, and thereby ending aggression at some point 400 years into the future, that is still here. That doesn't go away. Bitcoin is money. End of story.
Why do you think that many OGs actually like go down at some point the shitcoin rabbit hole? There's like very few that are long into Bitcoin and very hard on Bitcoin only, like I think Max Kaiser, you, Cypherdine, as like you cannot even name that many that are known.
No, very good question, and I think there are plenty reasons. First of all, like you have the first. I think there's first of all, I think there's a linear relationship between disagreeableness and how early you were to Bitcoin. So the earliest Bitcoiners were very disagreeable, and somehow they managed to collaborate to such an extent that we got this don't trust verify layer in society now that allows us ironically enough, it allows us to trust one another more. I trust hardcore Bitcoin maxis more than I trust anyone else on any other category of people on earth, because I know that they are not very trusting of others, because I know that they have this don't trust verify attitude. So that's the irony of that thing. Then I think that a lot of people in the beginning, they thought that they became rich and wealthy because they were so smarty. Roger Ver, for instance, he thought Bitcoin was such a success because it was a great medium of exchange over space. And when the block size wars happened, he doubled down on that and said, I did it once with Bitcoin, I'm going to do it again with Bitcoin Cash. That's an actual quote from Roger Ver. And he thought that the medium exchange thing was much more important than the Bitcoin not changing and scarcity staying the most important thing. Like the cost of running a node should remain low, therefore we couldn't increase the block size too much. Roger Ver was against that, and he tried to do the same with Bitcoin Cash as he did with Bitcoin. Turns out his story was wrong. A lot of other, Vitalik, for instance, wanted to build Ethereum on Bitcoin first. Other developers said, no, this is not a good idea. Go do your own thing. So he created Ethereum, 70% pre-mine, then the DAO hack, and they reverted the entire chain and just pretended that didn't happen, thereby proving they were centralized. And they just rugged everyone. Ethereum had its peak in 2017. It got up to barely half of that in 2021. In Bitcoin terms, which is always, you should always denominate this shit in sats and not in dollars. So it's a long, slow rug pull of everyone, and always a scam from beginning to end. The thing that was different about this scam is that because of all the word salad, they managed to fool quite clever people that this had any legitimacy to it. A lot of buzzwords, a lot of dev talk, dev slop, I'd say. But in the end, at the end of the day, Ethereum is now on a proof of stake system, which is provably centralized. And it's shit. It's always been shit. Sorry, guys. So either what you learn from that lesson is, okay, I was wrong. The maxis were right. I should go Bitcoin only. I now understand the flaws of my ways, and they were right, and I am humbled. Everyone who did that is better off today, because the maxis were right all along. We also have this category of very techie people that are that may or may not have been Bitcoin only, but they used up all their stack because they didn't believe that Bitcoin number could go up forever. So they squandered their stacks, and in order to or just fiddle around too much with it, with multi-sigs and coin joins and whatnot. I had a Bitcoiner friend like 5 years ago who asked me, like, I gave my mother 0.02 Bitcoin on a blockchain.info wallet on her phone. And I myself consider myself a security expert, and I did multi-sigs and blah, blah, blah. Who do you think has most of their Bitcoins left, me or my mother? And of course, it's the mother, because she just simply didn't do anything with it. And that's the most advisable thing. So I think a lot of these tech-interested people simply lost their Bitcoins. Maybe they fucked something up. Maybe they fiddled around and fucked around and found out, and now they have less Bitcoin. And in order to stay relevant, they need to scream loudly about this and that. They need to say stuff on the internet, and they need to defend this and that shitcoin or this and that shitcoining policy. Because they don't have a stack left anymore. While the question was why there are so many that shitcoin. The question should rather be why are you few who actually still defend Bitcoin and are still maxis? Why are you visible at all? And we shouldn't be. It's probably stupid for me to be a public person and claiming I'm a Bitcoin maxi because everyone's going to suspect I'm shit rich. I'm not, by the way. And either way, hardly even I know how to get to my Bitcoin. So don't try anything stupid. But most maxis, I think, and most actual defenders of Bitcoin that run their nodes and do their homework, they are very quiet, and you never hear from them. You never hear about them. So the ones that are on this traveling circus called the Bitcoin Conference Gauntlet, us idiots are something else. And my mission is to defend all of these anonymous people that sit at home and just want their stack to not change. They want Bitcoin to not change, and they're right. By the way, Bitcoin can never ossify. That is a fallacy. Since it's backed by human action, nothing backed by human action can ever ossify. We can change our minds. The Soviet Union fell at one point. So while it's unlikely that the more time that passes, the more unlikely it is for Bitcoin to change to a large degree, because you need such an overwhelming consensus and more people run nodes all the time. However, there is no way of knowing if it has ever ossified. In other words, you cannot ossify. The ideal scenario is where it only changes if everyone agrees that the change is good, meaning that we define what's good by if Bitcoin changed or not, meaning that Bitcoin can theoretically only change for the better, which is great. I don't believe we're there yet, but I believe that's the trajectory this is going in. Somewhat depending on the outcome of this current war and what happens with it. Yeah, we'll see.
I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups, because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use simplemining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address, and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together.
What is actually the current state of knots versus core in terms of what are the possible consequences from that? What is the next step? Is like a soft fork something that might be happening? Yeah. Is that Bitcoin core implementation might actually like just run out, or they might just like revert back to something else?
Yeah, I have spoken a lot about this, and I've also been painted into a bunch of corners doing so, and I'm not very keen on taking a specific stance in whatever's going on now. I'll leave that to people who are better at promoting the spam war than I am. But I'll say this: Core 30 has unfortunately gained some traction, and it's now one of the more popular node implementations, meaning that these 100 kilobyte op returns are now at least potentially propagating around the network, and therefore the risk for something illegal ending up in an op return is slightly higher. The argument for that being super bad is that your legal risk as a node runner is increased. The argument against that is that this was always possible. However, that's missing out that it's now more probable than it was before. So yeah, it's nuanced and it's kind of complex. The other thing is just spam itself, and if anything can be done about it, and if anything should be done about it. And there are different ideas floating around whether that can be addressed or not as well. And I'm happy to just, for now, be an innocent bystander and just sit back and see what happens. And maybe I'm taking action in one way or another, but I'd rather do that, if not anonymously, so not as publicly as before.
It's super interesting, because I think now it's a little bit more quiet. So I think there was like around September, October in the summer, like a real like emotional debate going on, where it was like almost every day something on that on my Twitter feed. Now I hear more about like JP Morgan again and like the bank's trilemma. Yeah. I'm curious how this whole thing will actually shake out, and what's the consequence from that in like 1-2 years, and see if like there's some how long this actually goes on, and what else, like if something is changing, or maybe if like something, all of it actually is changing, where we now maybe have knots as the most popular one, or if just like everything goes back to core. I'm since the beginning, I'm really uneducated on that stuff. I know theoretically I'm a software developer. Like I actually learned it in 3 years. I worked as a software developer, but I always say like I have no technical clue about it, because I don't want to claim any authority on that matter. And for me, it's always, I think Bitcoiners are fighting for the right thing. I think everyone fighting against spam is probably on the right side, because spam is not good, and I don't like this ordinal stuff and like all that. Like this is just like shitcoining on Bitcoin, and I don't understand why we even need it.
We don't.
Yeah, like we don't. So like, why would we put it on the perfect sound money that we have? So. It's a difficult debate for me, because I always kind of hanging out on a neutral position, and I got attacked for that, just like because I didn't make a position.
It's either way. If you say anything publicly about any of this, you're going to be attacked by one side or the other.
Both.
or both, yes. For me, it's definitely both. Even though I'm attacked more by the pro-spam side than the anti-spam side. Let's just say that. There have been a soft fork proposed, the so-called 444. I don't think that's the real name anymore. But it wasn't very popular in the beginning, but then again, no soft fork proposal is ever popular in the beginning. So we'll just see where that goes and what Bitcoiners are willing to do. I'm taking a step back here. I think my role in this, after having like weighed my options back and forth, I think my biggest the way I can contribute the most value is by just reminding people that shitcoins are shit and why they're shit. That's resistance to replicability cannot be replicated. It's as simple as that. Either Bitcoin works or none of this works. And if Bitcoin works, there's no point in any of the other stuff. So, so any attempt at piggybacking in the wake of Bitcoin's success is futile at best and a scam at worst. And I suspect that most of them are scams, including many of the bigger ones.
As we talked about hope.com, I found it also interesting to talk about strategy, specifically because it was in the news now with JP Morgan and all the things that were going on there. How do you in general look at strategy and separately from them? Because like I put them in a different category as all the other treasury companies. And I specifically exclude profitable businesses that just put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. For me, that's not a treasury company. I mean, that would be actually a good treasury company, but I talk about those pure plays that just like try to buy Bitcoin without actually doing any operational businesses. How do you look at like those pure play Bitcoin treasury companies and strategy?
Very good question and a good change of subject, because like I think I've said my points about the other subject here. So I try to value people in the Bitcoin space by their overall contribution. Is this person a net benefit or a net detriment to the entire project? Because sure, all roads lead to Bitcoin, but you can put up roadblocks in the way. Ordinals and spam are such roadblocks. So is shitcoin apologism. Seyr, on the other hand, I think he's very much of a benefit to Bitcoin and has always been. He's very good for. He's a very good public speaker and he's very adamant about his ideas about Bitcoin, and I love his contributions. The phrase I miss hearing at all of this Bitcoin conferences the last 2 years is "not your keys, not your coins." You never hear that anymore because everyone is talking about either stable coins or these fucking strategic reserve companies or ETFs or whatnot. Paper Bitcoin, they are paper Bitcoin, and you should know that. If you buy MicroStrategy stock, that's on you. It's not a substitute for the real thing. It is trusting a company with trusting another company with holding your keys. Because all of MicroStrategy's coins are custodied by, I believe, Coinbase. Maybe they shift to another custodian now. I don't know. But it's trusting a guy that's trusting a guy that's holding your Bitcoin. Or trusting a guy that's trusting a couple of guys to hold your Bitcoin, because it's probably a multi-sig in many jurisdictions of that. Sure. And sure, many of these guys involved have a gun to their head because they're afraid of the legal system in the country they're operating in. So that's another factor. I think MicroStrategy is pretty obviously the safest bet with all of these things. However, you should be aware that you do not own Bitcoin if you own MicroStrategy stock. What they did was figure out a way to tap into a pool of boomer money that was otherwise untappable to the Bitcoin ecosystem, because there was no way for all these pension funds and whatnot to invest in Bitcoin directly with all the boomer money that was locked in there. American boomers have a ton of fucking money. So Seyr and company figured out a way to sort of put a spigot on that lake and attach a water generator turbine on it with some different gears in form of the different products, where you as the boomer could enjoy some of the yield that Bitcoin gives over a decade or so. Sure, it's very hard to evaluate these things. I have no idea how their stocks will perform over time. To me, it's kind of obvious that they cannot outperform the underlying asset in the long run. That sort of defeats the purpose of these things. I think most of the other strategic reserve companies are just simple pump and dumps, and people with too much money and time on their hands trying to ride this particular wave of buzzword salad. That's what it is to me, and I still urge Bitcoiners to teach normies about the fundamentals, and to teach them about the difference between paper Bitcoin and real Bitcoin, to teach them the importance of, first of all, controlling your own keys, and second of all, running your own node, because without that, there is no system and there is no Bitcoin. So back to basics.
It often reminds me actually of altcoins, especially those pure plays that aren't strategy. And I mean, strategy in itself is also not a pure play because they still have operational business.
Exactly.
So like, the pure plays that just like, hey, we're a publicly traded company. We don't really have a business, or like a very small one only, and we want to raise all that money and buy Bitcoin. So like, give me your Bitcoin so I can buy Bitcoin for you. I'm like, isn't that what the altcoins are saying? Like, give me your Bitcoin so I can buy Bitcoin and you have a worthless token.
Yeah, it is this cycle's shitcoins for sure. And 99% of them will fail. With strategy, like, it's risky for me to say too much positive things about them, because maybe they really are also part of this cycle's shitcoins. But what Seyr and Strategy are doing is that they have this business already that is generating $500 million of revenue per year. And what they can do with that money is get they can show that to a bank, get a huge loan, so they can buy Bitcoins at a low interest. And they can, when they do so, their stock goes up in value, because Bitcoiners value stocks where there's a lot of Bitcoin in, like Bitcoin per share goes up over time. So when they do that, the value of the stock goes up, and then they have more collateral to show to the bank, ensuring that they can get yet another loan and buy more Bitcoin. And that's his strategy. He's been doing this over and over again, and just leveraging the flaws of the fiat system, which is perpetual devaluing of the currency and perpetually cheaper loans because your stock goes up in value, because you refuse to use the money that's losing value, and you're constantly buying the money that goes up in value. So we'll see how long that's a viable business model. At some point, the MicroStrategy may slump for 20 years before it starts working again, because it's so overvalued at that point. It's like volatility on top of volatility is very hard to predict, and very hard to say anything about what it should actually be valued at. And having said all this, I like the fact that this is the only thing right now that can tap into that giant pool of boomer money that would otherwise be untapped.
The only good thing that I see from all that treasury companies, but even from ordinals and stuff like that, is that pure shit coins, I will call them like that. They're just like, they're not having to do anything with Bitcoin. I don't hear about them anymore. I mean, there's a little bit Zcash. I heard the Winklevoss brothers talking about Zcash. I don't even know what this is.
In hindsight, I love the shit coins, because at least they weren't doing that on Bitcoin. Like, I'd prefer if they were doing normal shit coins again, because I hate that they're doing that on Bitcoin. And the argument some of them make is that because of these other use cases on Bitcoin, Bitcoin has now 10x in price or whatever. The price goes up because there's a demand for these things. But all you added was more volatility. You didn't add actual value. If you add a pump and dump on top of something actually valuable, you get the increased value of the pump and dump, but it's still a pump and dump. It's gonna dump. So no, Bitcoin should gain traction and therefore value in people's eyes through being money. That's and being money consists of two things: One is medium exchange over space, and the other is medium exchange over time, otherwise known as store of value. On top of that, they say unit of account too, but that's sort of obvious. It has to be a unit of account to function. Like that's the whole point, that you attach a number to something instead of splitting a goat in half when you want half a sheep, or that you don't have to do barter anymore when you have money. That's the point. So it has to be money. Money is medium exchange over space and time. It's as simple as that. Everything else is bullshit. Maybe I can be okay with time stamping something, a hash of something like 40 bytes here and there. Who cares? It's not the end of the world. Images and other tokens and all the other spam crap. It's all crap. It should be fought with everything we got.
And timestamping you can also do without. That's another thing. I wanted to ask you about the last classification about shitcoins, the stable coins.
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting because in Europe we have that like CBDCs, digital euro. There's ECP is saying like we need them. Lagarde says like we need the digital euro and all of that. In the America it's a little different, where not a lot of people want CBDCs. It's like from political level even like really like we don't want CBDCs, but they do want stable coins. And I worry a lot that we now adopt stable coins in the Bitcoin community as normal. And for me, stable coins is just like a CBDC, just that there's a private company in between the state and the fiat currency. How do you look at stable coins?
I'm very conflicted about them, to be honest. I think they do some good in banking unbanked people. I wish for those people to go directly to Sats instead of via they feel like a step in between. Like we didn't go from vinyl to MP3s. We had the CD in between. Then that's what stablecoins is to me. Like it's a very fragile product that is not as robust as what came before it, and absolutely not as robust as the thing that came after it. So, yeah. Thing with CBDCs, I don't think they will happen, and I'm pretty unique with having this position. But I think to a certain extent they're already here. Whenever you use a credit or debit card, you are being tracked. Someone is collecting the data, what you spent on what and where you were and who you are. All of that data is already available to collect from anyone using a credit or debit card. Sure, it might be hard to turn you off, but not really. Even back when 9/11 happened, there were a couple of Arabs in Sweden who were associated with some of the people that allegedly flew the planes into the towers, and they got their credit cards shut down the day after. Excuse me, by order from the American government. So this has been the banks have been able to do this for a long time. Maybe it's not as visible as in China, that where if you jaywalk too much, you can't buy a train ticket and stuff, like the real Orwellian stuff. But we're getting there, CBDCs or not. They're trying to introduce the CBDCs. Whether a stable coin is a step in that direction or a step in the Bitcoin direction, that can be discussed. I mean, it's this which way Western man meme, right? Either you have sunshine and Bitcoin and everyone's happy and all prices fall forever, or you have the Orwellian constant boot to the head scenario, which is the CBDCs and the banking cartel. Oh, sorry. And so is the CBDC helping one of these futures come to be, or the other one? I think for now, at least it's a gateway drug into Bitcoin more than it is a gateway drug into CBDCs. I sort of expect them to be captured at some point. Because these are centralized entities and they're capturable, so they will be captured at some point. I think to a certain extent that they extend the lifetime of the dollar and the dollar hegemony. I believe some of the people behind Tether, for instance, like Paolo, I believe he's a real Bitcoiner. I believe that's his heart's intent. How much that matters is another matter. I'm careful to say too much about these things because I first of all, I'm not educated enough on them, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, so I couldn't say too much. I'll say anything stable is still inflationary because it's not accurately representing the falling falling prices that actually the free market is deflationary, and money ought to reflect that. A stable coin by definition cannot reflect that because it's upholding the illusion that prices should be stable or tied to the dollar or whatever, which is a failing currency. So in the long run, it doesn't really matter because Bitcoin wins over these by purely being harder money. Yeah. And I'd also like to say that horses live in stables, and fiat currencies are shitcoins. So maybe horse shitcoin is the correct term for stable coins.
My small fear, my small fear with stablecoins, and I was shocked when I saw this. I think here was it. I think Sam Callahan was this that tweeted that, but I saw it multiple times in my timeline. Tether bought more gold last quarter than every central bank, and my fear is that we're now again building those small central banks, like maybe even like Strategy and then Tether and like other banks up and kind of mimicking the fiat thing just on top of Bitcoin. That, I mean, it's still better than with gold, because with Bitcoin you have the option to just like do it yourself. But then also, like, how many people right now do self-custody? This really worries me, that people just don't take self-custody of the Bitcoin and they just trust someone else. So that's kind of like my biggest concern about them. But I see the value in banking unbanked people and making the fiat system like 10% better, something like that.
But this should be celebrated. I mean, none of the people working at these central banks are Bitcoiners. The people working at Tether, at least some of them are Bitcoiners, and we should be happy about that. This is not all gold on the market, of course, and it's not. It's definitely not all gold that exists. Most of that is already in the central banks. So if an entity that is more aligned with Bitcoin can acquire more gold than all the central banks together, that's a good thing. The question, sure, these centralized entities and them owning more and more Bitcoin is worrying. Still, the majority of all the Bitcoins are still in private hands. They are not in institutional hands. I think it's like 60 or 70% of the network. And every time an institution buys from someone, they have to buy it from either another institution or one of these private hands, thereby increasing the value of everyone else's Bitcoins. So every one of those individualist Bitcoiners gets more powerful economically and in every other way, because money buys everything. When they do so, I'm not really worried about that. I don't advise people to sell their Bitcoins to Seyr or anyone else, but acquire more Bitcoins for themselves. But individuals are also stacking, and what can we do about it other than educate people and try to make them buy more sats for themselves? We'll just have to sit and watch how this thing plays out. The important part is that they can't utilize those Bitcoin for anything, but the only thing they can do with them in the long run is spend them. Otherwise, there are no value. Like, it's not like fiat where you can leverage the whole thing and just use them as to get even cheaper loans and all this financial instruments bullshit that you can do on top of fiat. In the end game, you will have to spend your sats to get any value out of them. So they will always trickle down, for a lack of a better word, to other people with stronger hands.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
that are buying it a gold and Bitcoin is a lot better than the central banks because they are Bitcoiners. I have one question that I asked each and every one of my returning guests on the podcast, and the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance on the podcast?
Well, that's a very good question. What have I learned outside of Bitcoin since the last time around?
It was a little over 1 year ago, I think, the last time.
Yeah, I try to learn stuff every day. I learned that it was the year 1974 that the former Prime Minister of Sweden, Olof Palme, removed criminal liability for government officials. Maybe I wasn't aware of the year before. I try to learn something every day. I learned the name of the guy that grew the forest here in a neighboring city, but I can't remember the name of the guy, so that doesn't count. I learned that they take your phone. No, maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm not going to say the rest of that sentence. What did I learn more? I learned that the Max Kaiser's drink, the Coco Max, consists of 2 shots of espresso and coconut milk from ingredients grown in El Salvador. I learned that. I mean, you learn something every day, don't you?
You definitely you have always like your small learnings every single day. I just, for example, learned that the Coco Max was made.
No, but that's sort of within Bitcoin too. I would say that instead of, I'll flip the question a bit and say that I'm nerdy with some other stuff than Bitcoin. So I really, since I did a lot of music production and playing in a lot of bands before, I'm very interested in music production and music in general. There's this great channel called with a boomer called Rick Beato, who breaks down why songs are popular and why they're good or bad. It's a very good one. I'd like just general knowledge about stuff. There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube there too. The Veritasium channel, for instance, is very good about all sorts of things in the natural sciences. And I love deep diving into the creative process and the process of making movies and TV series and story structure and character development and such things. I'm nerdy about things like that. I'm a big movie buff, and I love to watch documentaries about how they made Aliens or whatever, like what circumstances made certain lightning in a bottle movies or albums or books happen. I'm interested in stuff like that. I'm interested in history too, to a certain extent. Maybe not as much as I ought to be, but I try to learn something every day. It's kind of a hard question to answer. I mean, I learned that my son has a physics class in school today. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone else, but I didn't know it the day before. So
you made also the switch. I mean, this was a couple of quite some time ago to Bitcoin Infinity Media. I think the YouTube channel is now called. Is there now a movie coming, as you are interested in movies and character building?
I'll let the AI tools become a little better first, but there's definitely the possibility for a random dork to sit at home and make a Hollywood quality movie these days with Sora and all of this stuff. So maybe that's coming. I mean, who knows? I think I have another book in me. I think I have an album in me, definitely. And I'd love to get some time off to record some music sometime during 2026. I like doing different things and throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks or not. And I've forgotten the question. Yeah.
Yeah, more than enough. Like a lot of different things. Actually, really, really cool. Really cool. We have an end routine in the podcast, as you might remember from last time, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually will be. And the previous guest asked you the question: what is the closest country to a Bitcoin country currently? So, which country is kind of the closest thing to a Bitcoin country?
Well, it's hard not to say El Salvador, of course. And this is not because I'm now a statist cuck, because I attended one dinner with the president there. Like, this is so funny. Twitter is all over, like, he's not a true anarcho-capitalist because he had dinner with the president. Like, yeah, well, fuck you is my answer to that. So the thing with El Salvador is that the government tried to impose Bitcoin on the population. It didn't work very well. What did work, though, was the smaller communities. That's where the whole idea grew from. Like, had Mike Peterson and Bitcoin Beach had and Roman and those people had they not done what they did with that place, then the whole shebang with Bukele wouldn't have happened either. So it's not really a top-down revolution. It is a grounds-up revolution, and the underground Bitcoin movement and the fact that a lot of Bitcoiners are moving there and doing things with Bitcoin there, that is the true adoption, and that is what truly makes it Bitcoin country. And it's beautiful to see, because you have this country who was a very, very awful place to live in for the longest time because of all the murders and all the crime. Now you can see a very optimistic country that is still poor, but it's booming in terms of development happening everywhere and people just being better off. And it's beautiful to see. It's sort of the opposite of Europe, where Bitcoiners are treated like semi-criminals and, you know, viewed with suspicion at best. And you go over to El Salvador, where Bitcoiners are revered and respected. It makes all the difference. It's a beautiful place to be. I hope it lasts for a long time. I am, as you know, a skeptic of democracy being the least worst of ways of running a country. I think in some cases it's better to have a benevolent, dictator, for lack of a better word. What Bukele is I'm not going to comment on on how I'd categorize him. He seems like a nice guy. He seems like a clever guy, and with a sense of humor, which is better than which is better than not being that. So I'm still an anarcho-capitalist, and I wish that people wouldn't aggress against one another at all, and that there would be no taxes and no inflation, and that we wouldn't fight. Having said that, I prefer the common cold to bone cancer. So if I'm going to choose between two politicians, I prefer the one that is closer to the common cold than than the one that's closer to bone cancer, even though they're all on that side of the spectrum. So the least worst politician is probably the best you can get. It doesn't mean I endorse any politician. It just means that, El Salvador is. I can't pick another country than El Salvador. There are other places, of course. Madeira and Prague comes to mind. Very proud to have them both in Europe. South Africa has a ton of Bitcoin adoption now. Alberta, which is a very interesting country in the middle of Canada. A lot of Bitcoin stuff going on there. I'm biased, of course, because I'm naming places where I've been, but we are everywhere. We don't do borders. We don't do countries. We don't give a shit, and that's the beauty.
I love that. Last question that is in my mind right now, because you said like it's better to pick the best politician, even though it's still bad. Should we vote? Is like voting something that you like? It does make sense to pick at least the least bad politician.
For the most part, it's a waste of time, and that's simple mathematics. If 3 people vote, then there's a 33% chance that your vote will matter at all. And the more voters there are, the lower the percentage of that. So when there's like 8 million voters, it's almost a certainty that it's absolutely pointless to vote. And I know all the theories about, but that's only true on an individual level. Yeah, it is. And the individual level is all I care about, because I could have spent my time doing something more productive than something that did absolutely fuck all to change anything. So I choose to focus on changing my own life and taking myself out of the shackles of the government instead of trying to change the government. Because I think democracies are inherently flawed in the mostly because they actually favor collectivists over individualists, from the simple fact that individualists tend to be worse at forming parties than collectivists naturally. I mean, if you care more about belonging to a certain group than what that group actually stands for, then you're a collectivist and you will vote for those parties. Will be bigger. If you're an oddball and you don't want to do what anyone else tells you, you are not going to form a party. So democracy is not ethical. 4 people can vote to beat up the 5th guy who was the only one that voted no and take all his stuff. That doesn't make theft more ethical. It's still very flawed and immoral. So I wish there weren't so many taboos around the word democracy, and that people could actually see that this is not the ultimate form of government. The ultimate form of government is no government and no one being a dick to another person ever again.
I think this is a great ending point to the podcast. Thank you so much, Knut, for being on the podcast. Before I let you go, where can people find your work, find the things you're doing?
I'm Knut Svanholm on X, primal.net/Knut on Nostr. Easiest way to find me on Nostr. We're doing the Bitcoin Infinity Show and also the Bitcoin Infinity Academy. And right now we're reading this book. The Academy is a show where we read a chapter from each and every one of my books each week, me and Luke. And Luke reads the chapter and then we discuss the ideas in each paragraph. Aside from that, there's the Bitcoin Infinity Show where we interview, much like your show, we do a very similar thing. I interview other Bitcoiners like this for an hour and a half and talk to them about this and that. BitcoinInfinity.com is where you find the books for Sats. We have a Black Friday or Black Week sale now, so the paperbacks are 15 euros and the hardcovers are 21 euros, or the equivalent in Sats. They're also all available on Amazon if you want to get rid of your dirty fiat with the same discount. You can also go to geyser.fund/project/infinity, which is a long address, if you want to support the whole Academy project and get some books and some other perks. You can also now subscribe to our channel on Fountain for $5 a month and get all sorts of perks there. So there's plenty of ways to get more of our content, and I appreciate anyone who chooses to show their appreciation for us by zapping or tapping or liking or brushing their teeth.
Brushing your teeth, very important. Yeah. I just recently started flossing and I was like, oh shit, like I should have done that since a long time ago.
Yeah.
But we all learn different things at different time. Thank you so much, Knut, for being on. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.